Hello, this is the voice of Stewart Pearce, and welcome to my series of deep dialogues. These are vital conversations I engage in with global soul stewards from all over the planet, providing us with vital understandings about how we can create a new hierarchy of values to help us evolve into a brave new world. I hope you enjoy, and thanks for listening. And here we are. So welcome. Well, firstly, welcome to the wonderful Cindy Griffith. And to all of you people tuning in, whether you're in this moment, I see only Lois is here. So hi, Lois. I'm sure other people will be coming in. And if you're listening to this recording, then well done for arriving. You're going to have a superb time because we have a wonderful lady sitting before us who is a very experienced soul searcher. So let me introduce you to her. This is Cindy Griffith. Cindy is a psychic, a spiritual teacher, and with very close association with the A.R.E, founded by Edgar Cayce way back in the 1930s, 40s. A.R.E, for those of you who are wondering, well, what does that stand for, is an association of research and enlightenment. And Cindy is also the owner of Cindy's Crystal Corner, author of Soul Soothers, Mini Meditations for a Busy Life, and co-author of Voyage of Purpose and Grow Your Spiritual Business. She travels extensively as a guest psychic and spiritual teacher to locations all around the world. In addition, Cindy shares her unique spiritual insights via teachings throughout the US, online, and through the Edgar Cayce A.R.E teachings in Virginia Beach, Virginia. Cindy earned her master's degree whilst focusing on the mystic's journey to spiritual maturity. And later we will place her website up on the screen so that you can check her out, not while we're talking, obviously, please, but afterwards. And you can see all of the rich classes, articles, her books, and also her psychic readings. Welcome, 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 welcome.
Thank you so much. It sounds so lovely when you say it.
Oh, the bio.
Yeah, the bio. It's just I should have you read it for me so I can take that out and put it on my site. It sounds so lovely. Anyway.
Well, I feel that I could offer my services, you know, having been a professional voice for the last 50 years. But it's interesting. You see that the tenor of this entire platform, which is really designed both etherically and also literally, is designed to open up a new vibrational field of exchange where we're engaging in dialogue, in conversation from the heart to the heart. And of course, therefore, as we were just talking in our pre-show chat about the precepts that underline the entire process of what it is to be a spiritual being having a human experience that we're now returning to. The first emanation that you experience is one of grace.
Lovely.
So, the soul of the USA. Well, I'd love to come to what we may see as being an historic perspective of 1776 and what's happening now. But before we do this, if we can go anti-chronologically back to the extraordinary position that we all find ourselves in as we begin to realize that something is awry.
Well, you know, you can go all the way back to the creation story, and
Well, that's what I mean.
That's
You know,
what we're
from this
going to see,
perspective,
because
so if it's awry, we know we're in chaos. Let's just leave
right.
that there, and let's go back to, well, through the creation stories, what brought the shift.
Well, I love the creation stories that come from three mystics: Edgar Cayce, Eva Grius, who was a 4th century desert monk, and Origen, who was, and many of them throughout their time have been considered heretics and then later were forgiven. But the basic idea, and this is a Cayce concept, is that this idea of spirit is not people have passed on. It's not God, but spirit is the building blocks that emanate from God. And so in the beginning, God emanated spirit, and out of that formed souls. Now, the souls were not with a body. And that's important. And their role, and again, I'm interweaving these three mystics, their role was strictly to not worship, but to revel in God and to focus in God. And that kept their vibration, because as we know, mind is the builder, that what we focus on is what we experience. And so when we focus as souls on the divine is such a high vibration, it maintains our high vibration. And so we in the beginning were the same vibration as the divine. We were the divine, right? Because we are emanating out of God's stuff, you could think of it. So what happened is, where the fall happened is, it happened in stages. First of all, as souls, we were like, oh God, I'm just going to focus on you. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, what's over there? What are you doing? And our focus became restless. We became restless with our focus onto the divine. And through that restlessness, we created movement. Now, this is important when we come to how do we get back to our spiritual maturity. We let go of our movement and we let go of our restlessness. It's called apatheia, but we let go of that restlessness. So as we started to have our focus in other places and become restless, it affected our vibration, because our vibration, our mind, so to speak, because we had this nous, we had this mind, was no longer strictly focused on the divine, that fabulous highest vibration there is. It started focusing on other things. And we started becoming lower vibration and lower vibration. And as you know, if you watch steam go into water, go into ice, the lower the vibration, the more solid it became. And so we became more solid and more solid. And in the Edgar Cayce version, we went to Earth and we got very interested in what those animals were doing, wondering, wonder what that grass tastes like, wonder what that reproduction process is like. And we started merging with the animal aspect on Earth. And as we did that, our vibration got even lower and lower, and we got stuck. Now, the rest of the story follows for Edgar Cayce anyway, a more Christian mythos. And that is that Jesus, who was the first son, so to speak, and his fellows came down to Earth and said, hey, look up. You could see this also in the Gnostic myth, but we're not going to go into that. It's too much. So they tried, but they didn't have a physical body. And so they were like, this grass and this cow and all these other things in the world, they're too interesting. And so we sunk further into unremembering, into unknowing, unknosis, a lack of gnosis. And eventually, Cayce and some others took on more of a solid, not quite solid body, but a body where they could interact, because we had totally lost our connection and our healing. And that is the Atlantean time, where Edgar Cayce had a kind of a not body, but body. And he tried again. And he tried to teach this idea of oneness, the concept of one, that we are all one. And that has became prevalent. Eventually, he took bodies and started lifetimes, and so did Jesus and all these other masters. But eventually, we see bodies coming, and then teachers over the millennium, over the years, teaching this law of one, which is found in many different traditions, in many different languages, in many different, I want to say, envelopes, right? Of that we are one. And when we can remember that oneness, when we can return our focus and stop our restlessness and return our focus in towards higher vibration, mind is the builder, we will start to loosen up that connection and regain our memory of the divine. And the more we come into memory, the more we come into a lack of restlessness. Apathy is such a beautiful word, but you have to know the whole story of it. The more that we become our original blueprint.
Yeah, yeah. That's a gallop and beautiful. And what I'd love to do is to, not précis, but what I'd love to do is to pick up major themes that ricochet off my consciousness, because obviously the pathway that you've shared with us is something that's very familiar to me, or with me, or within me. So the first extraordinary principle is that we are children of God. We are spiritual beings of having a human experience. We are stars wrapped in skin. However, the exploration of separation brought us into a denser vehicle as humanness, which was overladen by egoic principles. So we moved away from the reverence, the veneration, the adoration of all oneness, those high vibrational frequencies that are really to do with samadhi, aren't they? They're to do with these extraordinary ecstatic forms of love, that we lowered our vibration and moved into the paroxysm of separation. And that's the problem of today.
Yes, and the restlessness, this restlessness of knowing we are more, but not knowing what that means, or not remembering, because we all know, right? On a deep, deep level. And I think this is where so much discontent comes from, and so much ego comes from, because we know we are divine. But we think that this meat body is divine, and that's where the mistake is made. The more we can understand that and it comes, I feel, and the mystics feel, through very often through whether it's meditation or prayer, or really focusing on, when we can't do that or we're not ready to do that, focusing on attributes that are God-like. And that's a whole nother thing that Cayce talks about, called ideals.
Yeah. And so if we return to the reverence and the veneration, we move into the one mind of all oneness, because we feel the intoxication that takes place deep within our cellular being, which I would suggest is divine. We are made in the image of God. It's just that we've unremembered it. We're now returning. I don't use the word forgotten. And so when we go into the fundament of what created this interesting symposium with those 13 patriarchal individuals that began the Constitution of the United States of America, they also believed in the examination of the new Atlantis, the new Earth. I believe that they were led by Saint-Germain, who happens to be my master and has been for 50 years. So, of course, I teach that quite extensively. And interestingly, I'm working with a man at the moment who is fascinated by cryptograms and has found his way into the very body of Shakespeare's language to discover that there are secrets held within Shakespeare's language that are formed in cryptograms, that are secrets to who the authors of the plays and the sonnets were.
Fascinating.
And what he's done, the reason why I'm mentioning that, because it sounds like I'm going off piste, but what he's also done is that he's using the same cryptograms within the Declaration of Independence, and is discovering the same principles, the same precepts, the same ideals, the same maxims are woven into the materia of the Declaration of Independence. And that's the coda that is taking us back into the inspiration of the fact that none of us are separate. Isn't that extraordinary?
It's the law of one. It's the law of one. It is interwoven through the millennia, because so many of the masters that's, well, of all the masters, I believe, actually, that's what they're trying to get us to get. And
Yeah.
it isn't, oh God, you are the best since sliced bread. I hate that expression, but you know what I mean. It isn't that type of veneration. It is more the understanding that that is the ultimate. That is the ultimate in vibration. That is the ultimate of love. And when you've talked to anybody, like when you talk to my husband, I'm sure you discussed it. When you talk to anybody that's had a near-death experience, that has had connection, reconnection with that ultimate, the underlying principle they come with is love. And it is a love that is, our bodies are too dense. This is why it's so hard to experience. You almost have to go out of body, which is what many people in a mystical experience are doing. Teresa Vavio used to, and Padre Pio used to have people hold them down with from their feet so that they didn't levitate, but that our bodies are at a vibration that's too thick to be in that love. So if for any reason that you want to raise your vibration, put your focus onto higher purposes, is to feel that and be able to experience that level of love. I mean, if that's not a motivation, but I think that's what it is. It's like, it's not like I love you like I love my child or I love my pet. It's I love you because just as much as I love that tree. It is this understanding that it's not these puny personalities that we love, that can encapsulate or can off gas, whatever, that level of love. Our puny personalities can't do that. It's that oneness that is going to give us that experience of love. And the physical body has a tough time, especially at the lower vibrations.
Yeah. And so in order to encapsulate this field of knowing, which is deep within us, but because of the density of our vibrational state, that people are not fully awoke to, I can't use the word awoke because it sounds as though I'm going into woke culture. I'm not talking about that, but aren't fully awake to it. I mean, for example, what I'm hinting at is the fact that in all of my work, because when I first started teaching voice, I realized that it awakened my psyche so that I started to remember what I saw as a child. So I felt, okay, this was back in the 70s, in the late 70s. I felt that I must get some training as a psychotherapist. So I moved into psychosynthesis, which of course is an extraction of Jung's work through Roberto Sergioli.
I know that work. That's
Yeah.
tough work.
Which is tough work.
Yeah.
For those of you who are thinking, what on earth's that? Psychosynthesis is the belief in the four bodies, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, and how they're all completely interrelated. So it awakened the whole of my response-worthiness in relation to my psychic intuitive, my psychic detective aspects. Anyway, back to where I was. And so I began to realize that we have so much noise within our bodies that the only way that we can resolve that noise, which leads us into the conflict and the crisis, is if we all calm down, which is what all of our teachers are saying today. Are you meditating? Are you working on breath? Are you really grounding? Are you really earthing? So that we can move back into the beingness, because to reach into the strong context that I wanted to take us to, what I'm experiencing, and I'm sharing this with you because I wonder what your experience and perception is as well, that we're beginning to lose a feeling linguistic, that we're losing the words that allow us to understand the firmament that you were just taking us into, of what is love. Is it unconditional, and therefore is it not tied to sentiment? What is it? Is it ecstatic? Is it devoted? Is it adoring? Is it completely, I could go on and on and on. Are we feeling part of the universe? Do we have a litany of feeling words? Because very few people read poetry today. They've moved away into the cerebral nature of the way that language takes us into really short thoughts and therefore really short breaths. And as a result of that, we're all becoming really wound up in this very cerebral way, you know. And it concerns me very deeply, because as a voice coach, as a sound healer, what I'm doing is bringing back people into the calmness and the stillness of their bodies so that the noise is healed.
Well, I definitely feel, first of all, that to me, love is uplifting, vibrationally uplifting. There's been a few times in my life that I have experienced non emotional love. And one was my husband kind of took me into the light part of the way, and uplifting is the word. And I got to a certain point, and my body said, I'm not worthy. My body and my mind said, I'm not worthy, and knocked me out of it. But uplifting, because you cannot experience, this is, the happy tears that you can't control. It's a wash of your system. It's doing that on purpose. When you feel a tremendous amount of love, it's almost like you can float off the ground, and it's not in an ungrounded way, it's in a super grounded way, but that you are like the axis, the axis mundi, you are connected on all levels. And so to me, I would think love, the word is uplifting, but the vibrational thing and voice, I think it's one of the reasons why people that are struggling with meditation do so well with a guided meditation, because you have a vibrational guide, right? And that as you're speaking, as the speaker is speaking, they are taking you on a vibrational journey, even though your mind may think you're going on a mental journey. One that is well done anyway is absolutely a vibrational journey. And this idea, I can't talk enough about vibration. And you and I were talking about earlier on our little chat about how whether it's the body is not sticking to even one sex anymore, that our cultures that are concretized into a certain vibration, whether it's through belief or rules or whatever, dharma, whatever, that they are not existing anymore. They are breaking through. And I think that we're seeing that on this side of the Atlantic and on your side of the Atlantic. We're seeing it everywhere, that these organizations, groups and organizations that are trying to stay the same and are trying to inflict obedience or concretization. Spirit gave me that word, and I just love it. And I looked up, it's actually a real word, but that they cannot go into this next phase with us. It is just not going to happen. And relationships that are built on shoulds and shouldn'ts, whether they be love relationships or friendships or communal relationships, they're not going to last.
So the identification is that all our central organizing principles, including the values deep within us, they're all based on the old paradigm of patriarchalism, which is essentially about control, coercion, and manipulation. As you were beginning to say, I should, you must, you ought. It is your responsibility and your duty, and if you don't, then your mother's going to be upset. And if you don't, you can leave, and I'm going to disinherit you. You're going to be alone.
Right. That love is conditional. And it doesn't mean that we have to put up with people's behavior. I think that's a misnomer, but I apologize. You start talking and it gets me thinking of something. So we keep going all over the place on this conversation.
We're like fountains that are sort of going over. And so we're giving this wonderful contextualization of what the principles are, firstly in the origin stories, which are mythos, but they're actually developed from really profound experiences that evidently took place in a vibrational state, which we somehow can relate to intuitively and imaginatively, but that we certainly aren't in at the moment, except for some very remarkable people. like the avatars or the brahmachari. Sorry, forgive me. The living gods like His
Yeah.
Holiness the Dalai Lama.
Yeah.
The man that I worked with in the 70s, Satya Sai Baba, who actually gave me Shaktipat, and for 2 weeks I was in a state of ecstatic love, in love with everything, and
Yeah.
as a result had transcendental experiences, and I wasn't high on LSD, where I
Mhm.
actually saw myself interwoven with the cellular nature of the trees in the ashram, etc., etc. Shaktipat, zoom, right through me.
Yeah.
And one of our wonderful attendees, so to speak, who is a wonderful guy called Steve Rosso, is saying yes, love is based on the feelings of harmony and joy and peace, the everlasting presence of unconditionality and inclusivity. So
Beautiful.
um, we're beginning to see the precepts and the ideals, the maxims of what we're referring to. Well, I'd love to refer to the principality of this formulae that the continent on which you're living at the moment, the United States of America, because I believe it is actually very significant in the trigger mechanisms that we're beginning to remember and move ourselves towards. Some people are using them, that will allow us to become more part of the essential fundament that we're talking about, which is the oneness of the all that is and shall be forevermore. Um, do you feel, we know that we regard the history of the United States as being remarkable, but do you feel that the civilization of the United States represents a gateway into the golden age?
Oh, that's a tough one. I feel that if we could get to the basic principles upon which we were founded,
Mm,
oh, yes. But Spirit once gave me a vision of that sometimes things have to get so diverse and so polarized for them to then get heavy almost and meet back together on the other side.
mm,
And it gave me hope. But right now, as a country, and I don't think it's just the United States, but I think we are a prime example that we're so polarized.
mm,
And all
mm.
I can do is count on that vision that eventually, kind of like a stick that gets heavy on both ends, that will come back, will come around full circle. And if we could get back to some of the founding principles, and I like to call them the fruits of the spirit, of brotherly love, the things that you read to me out of your book for the Templars, brotherly love, patience. Edgar Cayce says, if you have patience, that's all you need. Everything else will fall into part. These are also the same things Eva Grias called, uh, uh, you know, uh, well, the opposite of the passions, right? There, so we have brotherly love, all these things, kindness, which is my ideal, and that if we could practice the ideals, and every faith has them, whether it's the 99 names of God, whether it's the 10 Sephiroth, whether it's Edgar Cayce, and some of it comes from the Christian Bible, and the Old Testament as well, for the fruits of the Spirit. If we could abide, not obey, it's not obey, because that's not what it's about. This is not something that has to be drilled into us. We should do well. I don't want to shit on you, right? We need to start imbuing these in ourselves naturally. But anyway, if we could bring those out in our life, these fruits of the spirit, as I call them, and as Cayce called them, then yes, I believe we could be. And I believe there are factions, not necessarily left or right, because that's what we call it here, left or right, politically. But I think that you can find them throughout both, that if we could imbue those into our life, we could be a fabulous example. But right now, I'm a little concerned that we have not gotten to that tipping point yet where we're going to come into unity. So it's a tough question, Stewart. I feel that the building blocks are there. It's like having a cupboard with all the right ingredients,
Mm.
and our core memory knows those core ingredients. And I think that if you talk to most people, they would say, no matter what side of that pole they're on, that they would feel they embody those key ingredients. But are we using them? Are we making anything from them? And I think we all have the potentiality. And I think some of us are. There are some fabulous things happening around in the United States that show that. I wish it was more easy to see and to find. I think that's, but podcasts such as yours and others, they are demonstrating that the essence is there. Yeah.
And so it brings the breath of hope, doesn't it?
I am hopeful. And I feel, especially as a person who really takes a lot of the Cayce material, Edgar Cayce material to heart, that if we can remember this, it's very simple. Spirit is the life. In other words, God has emanated everything we need for the divine life, for that apatheia, for that stillness. That spirit is the life. Mind is the builder. We have a mind, and it is our mind that builds. It's not in a new agey, goofy, we have to think positive all the time, because we can't. I think that's unrealistic, and I think it's a disservice to our community that think that we have to think positive all the time. I think we need to be in integrity with what we're feeling. Like that's my thing. Be in integrity, and the rest will work out. But anyway, mind is the builder. You are given the opportunity when you wake up of any kind of day you want to have. And if you get off the wrong side of the bed and you start with a negative mindset, I don't care how many wonderful things, you're only going to see what your mind is pointing you to. And physical is the result. So we know in our mind, and a lot of us are very intellectual, we know the right thing to do, but then Cayce takes it to the final thing. Physical is the result. What are you going to do today, realistically? Not, I'm going to go to the gym 7 days a week, because you're not. What are you going to do realistically to imprint that blueprint into your day? How are you going to take those fruits of the spirit, whether it's kindness, love, patience? I mean, there's over 20 of them. I mean, there's a million of them, but there's over 22 that Cayce lists. How are we going to imprint that into our day? What action are you going to take? And it can be the tiniest little action, but if you keep repeating it, it becomes like anything. It becomes your way of life. And then you can be, as Cayce says, be a blessing to all those that you meet. And so if you can remember, spirit is the life, mind is the builder, physical is the result, and be a blessing to all that you meet, we would have a better world. We would have the world that we know we have the potential. We have a fabulous world. I don't want to think we have a bad world, but we would be able to live our potentiality.
I would like to venture forth, because what we're really doing, it seems, is using a lot of adjectives to describe the fundamental pathway that the ancients walked on, but we've moved away from the pathway. So we're asking everybody to come back. It seems to me that if we can move into very specific directives for ourselves, such as this week, I'm going to commit myself. I'm going to live the conviction of 12 acts of compassion. That what starts to happen is that we cease the, shall I do this? Shall I do that? Shall I do this? Oh my God, but there are 22 precepts. Oh my God, well, maybe I should, the doing mind, that if we can actually commit ourselves to, let me just finish the thought.
Yes, sorry.
If we can commit ourselves to 12 simple acts of compassion, a vibrational frequency is going to shift the sensorium of our bodies. And so our behaviors will begin to emanate something very extraordinary. I'll give you a point in context. I received a call. I have a day of writing today, going into recording one of my books that I should have recorded 10 years ago, but I'm only just getting around to it. Anyway, so I'm looking at it and thinking, well, this was written in 2011, shifts need to be made. And as I did this, my cell phone rang, and here was a client of mine who's in hospital, and it was the ICU director calling me and saying, "She's going. Can you come in?"
Mm.
And so I jumped into a cab. I'm not far from where the hospital she was in. Jumped into a cab, said to the cab driver, "Can you get me to my destination in 10 minutes?" And he said, "You look slightly concerned. I'll do it in 5." He immediately behaviorally read. I wasn't demanding. I mean, as usual, I was very gracious and I had a smile on my face, but he immediately read my behavioral process. And we got there with, just over five minutes, about 7 minutes. However, I said, "Drop me off here. Don't drop me there. Just drop me off here." And so I started to use my debit card to pay. And something went wrong with his machine, with the cellular machine. And so he said, "Hang on a moment, governor." And he started to drive to turn immediately left. And a bicyclist nearly hit the cab and was so fearful, he threw a huge wobbly. And so the cab driver also agreed with the wobbly and threw a huge wobbly. And I was thinking, this wasn't supposed to happen. I want to get to
Right. There goes
but
my 4 minutes.
she could be, releasing her last breath, and I must be there to witness this. It's so hallowed. I did get there in time. However, I was able to say, "Stop this, you guys. You're only doing it because of fear and defense." And the whole of their energy dropped. The cyclist left, and the cab driver turned around and said to me, "Who are you, governor?" Just see me as, in this moment, just see me as an angel. Now let me
Yeah.
use my card so I can go. And he said, "Well, let's use your car, but I'm going to take you to the very door." So he drove another block or so that I could get into the hospital door. The illustration of the story, we can see the impact on it. That if we have this awareness, then automatically we can bring about vast change and things are altered. The difficulty is that we are still consumed by the need to be right in separation and the defensiveness and all the other behaviors that go with that. But if we can find that stillness, because I was deeply shocked because it was actually right next to my head when I heard this, "Get out of the way, you."
Yeah.
And it was real. I was in a soft space preparing for the ritual dying, and it really penetrated my field. So I had to hold on to me, breathe deeply, detach, feel stillness, and observe in the moments that were ticking very fast. I feel it's important. Now, well, I'd love to ask one or more two questions, but are there any questions you guys want to ask? There are some wonderful people here. Julie is here, Steve is here, Albina is here. Albina Akramova. Wasn't that exotic name? Wow. Are there any other people that want to ask this wonderful, wonderful lady, Cindy? No? Okay, so please ask questions. And I just wanted to refer to Dave. The gentleman that Cindy was referring to just now is her husband, Dave Bennett, who was on Deep Dialogues in a male, because I do global Soul Steward ladies for 12 weeks, and then there's a break, and then I do 12 men. So do listen to Dave, because Dave has the most extraordinary story about how he died at sea and moved through this extraordinary transcendental experience, and then came back to live life for some time, to almost die again, and then recover, and is now a great teacher within the NDE, within the near-death experience movement, but also is linked with Cindy, and there they are both living in the celebrated central area of the ARE. So back to where we were. So we can do you can cohere with what I'm trying to illustrate, the substance of behavior?
100%. And one of the things that I teach are empath skills or empath thriving, right? The thing I teach is to don't worry about protect, project.
Mm.
that to choose the vibration, to check in to say, who am I? What is the vibration? And if I don't like it, let me spend some time with myself until I like my vibration. And who am I? Let me project that. And when we can, whether you're an empath or not, right? You can do it at the grocery store. If you've got negative Nelly behind you in the grocery store, project a vibration. And again, dealing with that polarity, an opposite vibration to what you want. Not that you're shifting the other person, that's not polite, right? But to keep yourself from shifting. But that when you choose your vibration, and you can through that mindfulness. And one of the things that I recommend to people is two things. One is we have all sorts of gadgets like our phones and our watches. You can put different bells on and to bring you back into that place of mindfulness, or maybe every time you walk through a door, every time you open your wallet, every time you open the refrigerator, very practical things to bring you to say, okay, that's one of my bells. Where am I? Where's my headspace? Am I in the heads? And again, it's not just Pollyannic thinking, because we need to be integrity. If you're having a bad day, have your bad day. Just give yourself how much time you're going to give to it, right? And then say, am I still in a bad day, or am I holding on to a bad day, right? So normally you'll find, just like a child cries and then gets over it, if we could do that, anyway, that's the goal, to be more childlike in that sense. But that when we choose to project the vibration that we want to be surrounded with, like you did with that situation, you will then find that you are being a blessing to all that you meet, right? Be a blessing with your vibration. And if you're having a bad day, you don't have to hide, but keep checking in with yourself and say, what is the best vibration I can be given my current circumstance? And maybe some days it's here and some days it's here. It might be different. But again, that's that mind is the builder, but it creates a blueprint for your physical result. And so your life and it's not your life, right? We're oneness. What's this law of one? When we can be more aware of our vibration, again, not in a Pollyannic way, but when we can be more aware of our vibration, we can then create the heaven on earth, right? That this mindfulness that you speak of, this awareness, this awakened state, right? That is what all these teachers are teaching us. To be mindful, whether it's mindful eating, whether it's mindful communication, whether it's, if I was mindful all the time, I wouldn't have interrupted you, right? So the more mindful we can be, even in our dialogues with other people, the more we can be a part of this raising, this rising that we keep reading about on Facebook, right? Don't just read about it. Be a part of it.
Be the change you want to see.
Be the change you want to see. And I believe that comes from being mindful of our vibration. It's so simple that people want to make it difficult. It's not. It's vibration. Do you want to be ice? Do you want to be water? Or do you want to be, I feel like I'm a slushy, right? Like, I don't feel like I'm steam. I don't have that great control yet, but I feel like I'm better than ice. In our evolutionary, I feel like a slushy, right? Like I'm not water yet. That's my goal.
Well, actually, I have news for you. You're all of that.
That is true.
I mean, earth, water, air, and fire. Varying states, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and hydrogen, the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. I love the way you speak of mind. I see mind as being whole. You see, we see it as being here. We're so overly constituted in relation to the cerebral dominance. And now something radical is taking place where we're beginning to realize that the heart has an energy field 5,000 times greater.
Well, and in the NDE community, the near-death experience community, and the research, they are finding, especially, they're finding that the mind is not localized. I mean, I use the head because I teach so much that I try to verbalize in ways that the average person can understand, right? And so the average person may not be able to conceptualize or understand that this again is meat, right? This is not where it's happening. And that's why, when you see psychics and channelers and intuitives such as yourself, when you're trying to get the right word, you look up because you don't look inside. You don't look inward, right? It's like the chakras aren't like a 7-layer cake, but nobody can comprehend that. And so we illustrate it as a 7-layer cake. It's the same thing with the mind. No, it's not in here. It is a field. And I love that. And when you study Hermeticism or Hermetic philosophy or alchemy, whatever you want to call it, they talk about the universal mind. And I have to say that resonates with me. That it's all of creation is a manifestation of the universal mind. You could call it God.
Yeah. What is the singular, or maybe it's plural? What is the singular behavior that allows you to feel serenity? What triggers you or leads you there?
Vibration, breath, and music. I have an unusual music. Well, it's not unusual. It's unusual to the modern public. I happen to listen to quite often old chanting, old Gregorian, not Gregorian necessarily, but old chanting. And there's a group called Anonymous 4. It's 4 women, and they're fabulous chanters. And when I listen to that music, it somehow, and you don't understand the words. There's some other groups as well, but it just takes me to a place, but it's vibratory, right? Yeah. It's vibratory. And the other day yesterday, I think I was watching it was probably a murder mystery, because we watch a lot of British Father Brown and, all these murder mysteries. Anyway, lighthearted murder mysteries. And there was in a church, in a cathedral, they were singing this, probably in Latin, I would assume. And I just was like, oh, but breath, when I'm doing my psychic work, I use breath. I breathe and I imagine myself from top to bottom being kind of reset, and my posture improves, and it's like resetting all my chakras. And people that have watched me say that's what I do, but I don't consciously do that. But I breathe and I bring my body into the vibration I want, and I come into a place of calmness, because that's what I need. Maybe not what someone else needs, but that's what I need to be able to be my intuitive self, is to be in that place of calm. But vibration, it for me, and Nikola Tesla and Edgar Cayce, everything is vibration.
With the risk of sounding patriarchal, I would like, from a paternalistic point of view, because I can do this now that I'm in my 70s. I believe that we all need to find ways of calming down.
I do. And I agree 100%, which is why I wrote my book, Soul Soothers, Mini Meditations for Busy Lives, because as I'm sure you've noticed, I'm a high energy person. Yeah. And even what may appear to be quite active for me is calm. Like, this is my calm self, believe it or not. So I'm not a person that can sit for a long time. And so what I need to do is chunk out my ways. And that's where that book came from. I'm not pushing that book, but that's where that book came from, is because I think it's important to remember that not everybody is the meditative monk personality, right? We have the ability. I once had a psychic, Craig Junjulis, he's a fascinating guy. But anyway, he said, Cindy, you're in that altered state all the time. You just don't know it. And I'm like, because I am a little hyper, but he's like, you're in that altered state all the time. It's just you've learned it kind of like a functioning alcoholic, right? You've learned to exist in that state. But not everybody has the ability to just say, oh, hold on a second. all right, I'm connected, right? Some people, it takes a lot more work. It's like a muscle, you have to work it. And I think that we need to forgive ourselves for those of us that are not that monk, like my husband. He meditates every morning, and he'd be happy being in a cave somewhere, but that we're not all that way. And so I think, yes, we all need to find a way to calm down. I think we need to be kind to ourselves and recognize that that may look different for each one of your listeners.
Well, this is what's so extraordinary, isn't it? And it's not that it means that that's a stamp of separation, but it's remarkability about what we are as human in our unique diversity. But at the same time, the precepts, the tools, the maxims, the sensibilities, the sensitivities, and the sentiments, not the sentimentality, giving power away and being mawkish, but becoming attached, but looking into the sentiment we all share. That's what's so extraordinary. They're codes deep within our divine blueprint.
Well, and those
I want to put forward a caveat, because I travel the world and teach in corporate situations as well as in the mind, body, spirit industry. And I've spent, as you know, over the last 12 years, extensive amounts of time in the mind, body, spirit industry in the United States of America, which is more advanced from a didactic point of view, from a commercial point of view, from an elicitative point of view of what it elicits from the corporate nature. And when I say that, I'm talking about the communion of souls that are drawn to major events. I mean, the fact that I would go to Los Angeles to the Conscious Life Expo, and there'd be thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people, where there's no comparison if we go to a Conscious Life Expo or a Mind, Body, Spirit festival in the UK or other parts of Europe. So there's something very extraordinary taking place. However, everybody is moving so fast because of the doing impulse. And there is a neuroses about it. And so as we know, the stress factors are getting higher and higher and higher and higher. And as a result of that, the pharmaceutical industries are making a tremendous amount of money. Whereas we're actually human beings, and we're knowing today that when we move into relaxation, whatever that relaxation may be within the diversity of who we are, whether it's a walk in nature or reading a novel or listening to music, actually sitting still or riding a horse or doing the supermarket shopping, whatever it may be, gardening, etc., that if we can find a way of touching into those exquisite hormones like oxytocin and serotonin, we automatically find that being provides us with a calmness and a serenity where our intelligence is expanded and extrapolated and amplified in the most extraordinary way, not just for the cerebral notion of what our lives are all about, but bringing the whole of mind, body, and spirit into holism. So that's what I'm putting forward. I'm waving a banner saying this at the moment. And hey, you guys, you're not asking any questions. Thank you so much for tuning in. But where are your questions? Steve, you have a question. We have 5 minutes. Do you have questions? To be godlike is to embody and radiate the virtues and extend God's heart. This is why we are here, to be God-free beings. Wonderful prescience from Steve. He's agreeing with us. Okay, so what do you feel is your specific for you and your trajectory, your incarnational pathway? What is the great dream that you have for the next 10 years?
Well, my great dream for me personally is I really want to be able to reach people in a way that assists us. I mean, it's not me, right? But I would like to be able to be part of the vibrational shift, and that requires me to be in my happy place, wherever that happy place is, whether it's that altered state or whether it's we were talking about the Dominican before, whether it's in the Dominican. So whatever is going to be able to allow me to be a blessing to all that I meet. You can tell I really take that saying from Mr. Cayce to heart, because I feel like if we could do that, God, we would be that vibration that we need. And so for me in the next 10 years, first of all, I would hope on a very selfish way, I want to travel. I want to be able to take in the vibrations of the world. I've been in places, I've been to Egypt, and I've been to follow the steps of St. Francis and St. Paul, but I haven't done a lot of travel. So I would like to travel. And within that, it requires me to move more and more online. And so that I can give my little blips of wisdom and then have it up there for people to consume and hopefully learn from and grow from. So my next 10 years, I hope to not have to be so in person, because I really want, I realize if you wait too long, you can't do it. I'm 62. My husband's 67, I think. I can't remember how old he is. He's older than I am. And, if we don't travel now, it won't happen. So there's the selfish Cindy. I don't think it's selfish. I think it's just fulfillment, right? And then there is also the light worker, which I'm not big on that phrase because, it's so overused, but the vibrational influencer, right? About me. So for me, I really see, and I feel it is the way of the future, even though many people are kicking and screaming, is more of this online content, because people don't have, first of all, the attention span. I'm finding if it's over 45 minutes, people, kind of like, oh, that's it. Okay. Or even over 3 minutes sometimes in some formats.
That depends on the vibration.
Yes. So
that depends on the vibration.
Yeah.
Sound is at the core of creation. And so we need to know about how we can actually use certain sounds that entrain the listeners. We've been talking for nearly 60 minutes. And Elisa has just said, I am enraptured in the conversation. I am enraptured in the conversation. And so therefore, there are no questions coming up. I am soaking in it. And it's to do with the field, do you see, isn't it? It's to do with the vibrational field that where you and I are able to connect on a heart level. And there's a lot of bubbly going on up here to do with grabbing ideas, thoughts, memories, sensations, experiences, and our own specific technology, because we've been developing our own linguistic from a professional point of view for some time, so that we can actually lead people to the pathway of freedom. So it's already happening, do you see?
Yes, I do see it. And I find my strength is working with beginners. And so we have to meet people where they are. And I am so excited to have this high level of conversing, because it's such a gift. Right? It's such a gift to us, but it's also such a gift to those that can experience it. And I think, though, when we look at that 10-year plan, back to your original question, I want to be able to find ways to touch and reach the people that only have that short attention span, only have that ability to just plant little seeds. Because if we plant enough seeds, we'll have a forest soon enough.
What a wonderful note to complete on. Okay, I've suddenly had this extraordinary image of all of these seeds and these trees, and wonderful forest of conifers, of course, going across a landscape that is lifting up into one of those high mountains of the Wyoming or Montana.
Well, you saw right into my vision.
Thank you so much for coming on and sharing all these wonderful thoughts and feelings with us.
Well, thank you for offering the platform. It's been lovely.
I want to invite you back on, of course, because I want us all to see what the next stage of the vision is, the 10-year vision, what the next stage is. Where will you be when I next have a conversation with you? You may be in Italy, you may be in Istanbul, you may be walking the Rose Line from Chartres all the way down to Ephesus,
Oh,
so we will have to complete. So thank you so much. And I'm
thank
sure
you.
everybody that you are thanking Cindy for her wonderful spirit. And here is her website, cindygriffith.com. And so please do make a note of that, or, you will always be able to return to this recording so you can see it. And go to her website as we close down so that you can see all of her wonderful books and all of her sessions and all of her, all of the gifts that she's giving, because they're very considerable and they're born of these fundamentals. Thank you so much. Don't forget,
Thank you for having me.
we have another, bless you, my darling. We have another great speaker coming on next week. There are, I think Cindy's number 129th, the dialoguer. So well, that's quite interesting. Anyway, and also don't forget, if you are interested in coming with me in December to Egypt, 2 people have dropped out, and so I have 2 places for anybody who would like to come. Cindy, please stay where you are for a second. Thank you, Ryan. We'll finish our conversation here. Bless you. See you next week, Sarah and Steve and Julie and Elisa and Ange and so forth. Is he? Oh.